This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is the NRL Round Review Podcast, and it was round number 10 across the weekend, and it kicked off with the Eels and Dolphins being played at CommBank Stadium. If you want to hear more in-depth podcast about that game, then check out the Game Review Podcast that is already out. So the Dolphins got the win 20 points to 16. I thought probably Parramatta could go into this game and win it, but it wasn't to be. Isaiah Katoa and Herbie Farnworth, it was their night of nights. I thought Mitchell Moses was probably a little bit quiet in this game, I thought. He had his moments, that is for sure, moments of brilliance, but I thought he could have maybe just stepped it up again and got the victory for the Eels, but it didn't go the Eels' way. Nothing was going the Eels' way, and the Dolphins, they just got the win, unfortunately for us Eels fans. But look, what a crazy weekend of rugby league, that is for sure. It was a great round of rugby league. I thought Magic Round was a really good round of rugby league with some cracking games in there. But this weekend's that has just gone, the weekend of rugby league, that was sensational. I don't know how they're going to top that this weekend, but look, there was only one big blowout score, and that was 64-0 to the Storm over the Tigers. But all the rest of the games, they were all competitive. There was comebacks galore. And some really upset results. I think I only got 3 out of 8 in the tipping. It's hard to be a tipper these days. But the next game on Friday night was Newcastle Knights up against the Gold Coast Titans up there at McDonald Jones Stadium. And look, it was 20-0 at one stage. And it looked like the Newcastle Knights were just cruising. And you thought, well, look, this is another game that the Gold Coast Titans are going to lose, and it's going to put more pressure on Des Hasler to keep his job, as we have heard throughout the week as well. But it ended up 24-20 in favour of the Titans. The Titans got the win. There was a shot of Des Hasler in the coach's box. I think it was at full time, and he just looked stunned. He just couldn't believe that they ended up winning the game. It was 20 points to 6 at half time. So the Titans managed to get a try through Phillips Army just before half time, but it was still pretty much the Newcastle Knights looking like they were going to get the victory. But AJ Brimson, he scored a double, and Phillips Army scored a double for the Titans, and they never went away. And look, the Newcastle Knights did not score a point in the second half, which is really concerning for them, that is for sure. And it just turned out to be the Gold Coast Titans who got the win. AJ Brimson, as I say, was probably the player of the match. Scored 2 tries. Jaden Campbell as well, 4 out of 4 conversions. And an upset victory, you could say, for the Titans, and that was the start of the roller coaster ride of the results throughout the weekend. The next game was the Rabbitohs taking on the Brisbane Broncos at Accor Stadium. Both teams last start losers from Magic Round, and it was a wet night in front of 13,747 fans, and look, it was Latrell Mitchell's night, wasn't it? 3 out of 3 conversions, a penalty goal, and what about that 2-point field goal? I think it's like the longest ever field goal in the NRL. I think Chris Sandow kicked the same sort of distance as well, again for South Sydney as well, but a 2-point field goal in the 77th minute absolutely nailed it, and Latrell got the 2-point field goal. He also scored a try late in the game, the 79th minute, to really seal it for the Rabbitohs. And look, it's added a little bit of conjecture, bit of controversy perhaps from rugby league fans. Now, it did look like Latrell, it was pretty much the end of the game. I think South were in front, and it looked like Latrell was just going to take a knee and just get tackled, and that'd be game over. But he's gone down. Billy Walters, I think, was that marker. Sort of laid off him a little bit because it was the end of the game. But then Latrell jumped up and scored. Now, is that in the spirit of the game? I don't know, but I guess you should play to the whistle. And I guess that is now fair game for players, especially at the end of the game, to make tackles. I think we saw it last year. I think it was last year, Canberra and Brisbane. I think Brisbane were winning quite comfortably. I think Reece Walsh was running around near full time, I think it was. And Joe Tarpany's just come over and absolutely creamed him, which means that he was playing to the whistle, and maybe we will see more of that. So, look, some fans are for it, some fans are against it, but look, it's not my cup of tea. Look, I personally think if Latrell Mitchell got the ball from dummy half, I reckon he would have been too strong for Billy Walters anyway, and probably would have scored anyway. So that's just my opinion. But the Broncos, who knows where they're going to go from here. Ben Hunt is out now for 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. So he will miss Origin 1, potentially number 2. But look, concerns for them as well. They didn't score a point in the second half. They were winning 14-0 at half time. And there is a curse. There is a 14-0 curse if you're leading at half time going around as well. There is some ridiculous stat about 70-something% of games that if a team is winning 14-0 at half time, they will go on to lose the game. So shout out to Matty Tate, from Tate Sports Guards, who loves that stat and loves that every time it gets to 14-0 in a game, we always message each other and say, hey, Matt, it's 14-0. And, and we all know what that means. And that's what happened in this case. So that was the first game on Friday night. The second game on Friday night. And then it moved into Saturday. And look, I was at work this day, so I caught the replays, and I was checking the score on the way home, and listening to catching the score on the way home. And anyway, it was Canberra 20-0 in front at half time, and I thought, wow, they are cruising at home. It was a sold out game. 23,867, and I thought, wow, they are cruising 20-0 against the high-flying Bulldogs. Yeah, sure, they've got this wrapped up for sure. But then, wow, I don't know what Cameron Ciraldo said at half-time or how he said it, but after half-time, the Bulldogs just come out and scored 32 unanswered points. And the result ended up 32 points to 20. And Wow, what a comeback. I think it was the biggest Bulldogs comeback in 24 years, to come back from 20-0 down and get the result, a key result against another top 8 side. Stephen Crichton, he'll probably be the first player picked for New South Wales, I'd have to say. Scored a try, set up a try. Just the ease that he scored his try. He's just got the big wingspan. He's got the grip, the gorilla grip on the ball, and could just hold it in one hand, wave it around the air, and scored a great try there. Set up a great try. Max King got another try as well. Seems to be a try scoring machine these days. He got one the other week, which was after 85 games or something like that, and now he's got another one, so he's a try-scoring machine. Jacob Kiraz, he got a try, who potentially might be an Origin smoky. He might get a position in the State of Origin side. He got a try. As well as Jamin Salmon, he got a try as well, and didn't he let Ricky Stewart know about that one? Just yelling the words "weak gutted dog" at the camera, and look, it went viral. All that footage went viral, and Ricky was asked about it in the press conference, and kudos to him. He probably just deflected it really well. There was an interesting little bit of stuff on social media going around up at Magic Round. Someone from the crowd was yelling out to Ricky, who was, I think this must have been before the game, he was like, "Hey Ricky, Jamin's a weak gutted dog," or something like that, and there was just a little bit of a smirk from Ricky, but he handled it in the press conference pretty well. He sort of just said, "Oh, do you think that really worries me," or anything like that. So yeah, that feud is still going on. But the Bulldogs, they still roll on. They're in top spot on the ladder, and are probably a serious premiership contender. The next game on the Saturday was the Dragons and Warriors. And another game that was a close result, 12,919 down at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong. A place where I think that the Dragons play better football, that is for sure. I don't know what the reason is there, and I don't know the reason why they didn't wear the Steelers themed jersey down in Wollongong. They wore their sort of Cogra home jersey down there with the red V. I don't know why they didn't wear the Steelers one down there. Because it wouldn't have clashed with the Warriors, because they were predominantly blue, and this one's predominantly red, so don't know why they didn't wear that. But anyway, it was 14-4 at half time. Luke Metcalf, who's been playing some really good football of late, has really been leading this Warriors team around. He got a try. And the Warriors, they only got the 1 point in the second half, but it was a crucial point. Luke Metcalf kicking that field goal, 69th minute, and look, a lot of people have said, why so early out? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, as long as it's not like 20 minutes out, I guess, but just if you're in position and you want to just get a little bit of an advantage, why not kick a field goal? And that is what Luke Metcalf did in the 69th minute, and it ended up being the difference between the two sides. So kudos to him for doing that and getting the Warriors the win, and they are sitting pretty good on the ladder at the moment as well. The Dragons, I don't know, a couple of losses in a row now for them. A little bit disappointing from then coach Shane Flanagan. He will be disappointed with the results in this one. Clint Gutherson got a try in the first half, but other than that, there was not much from the Dragons, so I don't know where they go. They nearly pulled the victory off, but it wasn't to be. And the Warriors, they march on, and they are in the same position now on the ladder, with the same number of losses and wins as they were in 2002 when they made the grand final. So, look, is that an omen? I don't know, but they are certainly playing some great footy. Their first Golden Point game, I think it was, of the season, was played next up in Townsville between the Cowboys and the Panthers. Now, the Cowboys, they got the victory over the Panthers down at CommBank Stadium a few weeks earlier this year, but the Panthers, they had a great win over the Broncos up there in Magic Round, so they would have been going into that game pretty confident, and look, they were looking really good. They scored 3 tries in the first half an hour, and the Cowboys only 1 try, so they were in control of this game. Blaze Talangi, he scored a try in the 64th minute, but also had 4 try assists. Probably had his best game in Penrith colours. Probably gave him a lot more confidence coming out of that game, even though it was a draw. And look, that adds a question to everybody. What are your thoughts about Golden Point? Should Golden Point stay? Should it become Golden Try? Or should it just go back to the old draw system where if it's the same score at the end of 80 minutes, each team gets a point? I don't mind, to be honest, whichever way it goes, but the draw system for me does work pretty well. It just adds that unevenness of points on the points table, which makes it pretty interesting come late in the season for finals time. But yeah, I don't know. Do we go back do we scrap Golden Point? Because more often than not, we see teams just kick field goals to win games in Golden Point. And hey, look, that's fair enough. If they want to win the game that way, then yeah, why not? But why not just go back to a draw? Just have 1 point each side and go from there. But look, the Panthers, they are just struggling this season. They're coming second last, just 1 point above Parramatta, who are coming last. But look, I think they have their moments and then they don't. And look, I don't know if it's just me, but are they relying too much on Nathan Cleary to get them out of the trouble and whatever? As I said, Blaze, he had his best game in Panthers colours, and that will give him confidence moving forward throughout the season, forming that combination with Nathan Cleary. But I just think they might be relying too much on the number 7 for the Panthers to get them out of trouble. And then look, rightfully so. He is the best halfback in the game. Excuse me. He is a 4-time premiership winner. So why not? But I guess you don't want to be known as a one-man band team. I thought Liam Martin was very quiet, as well as Isaiah Yeo, their other top-line players as well. So, look, I think they really are missing Jerome Luai and James Fisher-Harris as well. And, look, that's what happens when you win competitions. You lose players, and hopefully you can replace them. But this year especially, it just seems like they are really struggling. Tommy Dearden looks like he may have played himself into a State of Origin spot for Queensland, if he didn't already have one, but he played very well the other night. He scored a try in the 73rd minute, which pretty much got the game back to 30 all. And look, there was a couple of field goal attempts from both sides. There was a couple of 2-point field goals attempts, but none of the teams could nail it, so it ended up a draw. So, look, the Cowboys, they tend to they get off to slow starts, and I guess they find their way back into the game, but they'll want to try and get off to a better starts in games and not give away so many points and then having to claw them back. The next game on Super Saturday was that was the last game on Super Saturday, sorry. Sunday, well, it was a Sunday massacre for the Tigers anyway, 64-0 to the Melbourne Storm, and they were unbelievable. Played in front of 17,376. 11 tries to nil. Ryan Papenhuyzen, he scored a triple inside 20 minutes, scored 4 tries, kicked 10 goals, I think scored 36 points for the whole game. It was 34-0 at half-time. Yeah, what do you say about this game? There's not too much you can say about this game. Melbourne, they were on. They were on yesterday. 64-0. Unbelievable. I think, Ryan Papenhuyzen, could he be a New South Wales fullback? Well, I don't think so. I probably would have James Tedesco as the fullback. Andrew Johns has said that he'd put Tom Trbojevic as fullback and have Latrell and Stephen Crichton in the centres. Now, that wouldn't be a bad shout either, to be honest, to have those players in that side altogether. So I don't think Ryan Papenhuyzen will make the side there, but look, there's not really that much to say about this game, to be honest, other than it was really disappointing from the Tigers. I thought they could have put a better effort in than that, but as we know, being a Parramatta fan, it's pretty hard to go to Melbourne and win. Melbourne put 56 points on Parramatta, I think, in round 1, so I feel for all you Tigers fans because I know what you are going through now with this result. But the Melbourne Storm, probably the competition favourites at the moment, even though they are not in first place on the ladder, but they are certainly one of the favourites to win this year's competition, that is for sure. They did it without Will Warbrick and Harry Grant as well. Harry Grant's still out. Little Harry was looking at Craig Bellamy up there in the stands, up there in the coaching box, and was mimicking the put a smile on your face thing there to Craig Bellamy, and Craig was still angry about something for some reason, even though they were winning 64-0, but that's just a little bit of banter that they had between each other down there at Melbourne, but they are certainly still looking good, that is for sure. The last game to wrap up the round was the Sea Eagles taking on the Sharks at 4 Pines Park in front of 15,823. It was a 5-2 victory for the Sharks. It was 14-0 at half-time, and I messaged Matt Tate from Tate Sports Cards, and I thought 14-0. Here we go, Matty. What's going to happen? He said, Sea Eagles will win, but it wasn't to be. The Sea Eagles, after half-time, Tolu Kula, he scored 2 tries. One of them was an absolute cracker of a try. I think Amoli Olukwatu put in a little bit of a cross-field kick. I think he was looking for Jason Saab, the speed man, but he got the ball and then I think passed it inside. And then anyway, Kula ended up getting it and scoring that try. That was an unbelievable try. It was a great try. It was probably the try of the game, I reckon, but they couldn't come back from that. When they did score those 2 quick tries, you thought, yeah, okay, they're going to come back here, but unfortunately for the Sea Eagles, it wasn't to be, and just made too many mistakes. The Sharks, they roll on. They had the win against Parramatta in Magic Round, and they are just, I guess you could say, sneaking under the radar a little bit, just hanging in there at top 4 and getting the victories. And Nico Hines, the last 2 weeks, he's really stood up and controlled this team really, really well, and it's showing in the results. So The Sharks, they march on in this competition and got the victory over the Sea Eagles. The Sea Eagles, they'll be disappointed about this one. They did have the bye the week before, last weekend, so they didn't play a Magic round, so that can also be a little bit of a hindrance for some teams, having the bye, and then trying to get back into the rhythm of games. But look, every team gets byes, so some handle them better than others. But back to the drawing board for the Sea Eagles right now, so I don't know where they're going to go from here, but disappointing for them. Now, to the ladder, and it looks this way. The Bulldogs sit on top on 18 points. The Warriors, 16 points. The Storm, 14. Raiders, 14. They are the top four. The Sharks, 12. The Cowboys on that uneven points now on 11. The Broncos on 10. The Sea Eagles on 10. Round out the top 8. Just out of the top 8 in ninth position are the Roosters, who had the bye in round number 10. They take on the Bulldogs this weekend. The West Tigers drop down to 10th. They are on 10 points. The Rabbitohs go up to 11th. They are on 10 points. Then it's 4 teams on 8 points. The Dolphins, Dragons, Knights and Titans. The Panthers are in 16th on 7 points. And the Parramatta Eels, unfortunately, round out the table in 17th spot on 6 points. Looking towards next week's games, and the Bulldogs take on, looking towards, I should do it properly, shouldn't I? I was doing that off the draw, but I'll do it the proper way. It kicks off on Friday night. Newcastle taking on Parramatta up there in Newcastle, McDonald Jones Stadium. The second game on Friday is the Bulldogs taking on the Roosters. The Saturday games are the Dolphins taking on the Warriors. That one is at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. The Cowboys take on the Sea Eagles. The Sharks take on the Storm at Shark Park. The Broncos take on the Dragons on Sunday. The Raiders play the Titans on Sunday at 4:05pm, and there is a 6:15pm game. It is the West Tigers taking on the Rabbitohs. That game is at Campbelltown, and the Panthers have the bye this weekend, and that will mean that the reason there is a Sunday 6:15pm game is because there is Women's Origin on Thursday night, game number 2 in the State of Origin series, the Ampol Women's State of Origin series. The Blues, they are 1 up. This game being played at Allianz Stadium, so hopefully there is a big crowd there on Thursday night at Allianz Stadium. I think they're offering $10, $15 tickets to this game, so get out there, support the Blues, as I hope most of you are Blues supporters in New South Wales. But hopefully they can wrap up the series at home in front of their home fans. That would be sensational. But Queensland, they'll be hard to beat, having been beaten in game number 1. But the Blues, they got that 1-0 advantage, 32 points to 12 in that first game, so they really gave Queensland a hiding. But we all know what Queensland can do in these sort of situations. But look, support the Blues. Let's get them home. Hopefully they can win the series. That game is on Thursday, 7:45pm at Allianz Stadium. Thank you for listening to this NRL Round Review podcast. I hope you really enjoyed your footy over the weekend, and I hope you enjoy your footy coming up this weekend as well. As I said, some great games being played last weekend. Don't know how this weekend's going to go, but that weekend of rugby league was certainly sensational to watch, and what a game rugby league is, the greatest game of all. On that note, I will finish this podcast by saying the Para Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para! How you going, mate? Are you a Para Cave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast. See you next time.